We have in some of the readings for today's Mass this sort of prophecy about the end time, when Jesus Christ will come again in glory and all the angels with him to judge the living and the dead. And according to these prophecies, in the words of Jesus, it's a time of tribulation. There's going to be a lot of trouble. And according to the prophet Daniel in our first reading, it's going to be a time of great distress. It says when the judgment is coming, when the end is coming, it says it shall be a time unsurpassed in distress since nations began until that time. So we don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but it seems like when things come undone at the end of time, it's going to be tough. And it's kind of frightening to think about it. But you know, in our reading from the prophet Daniel, we have a message that can really guide us. So it says here that in this time of great distress, it says that the wise shall shine brightly like the splendor of the firmament, and those who lead the many to justice shall be like the stars forever. And when I hear that, it tells me that when the great tribulation or the great distress comes, there's a way to not only survive it, but to thrive in it. Now, we don't know what the great tribulation and distress will be like at the end time, but each of us might have some personal experience go into a time of great distress or a great tribulation in our own personal lives. And that seems to be the way things go for a lot of people. But according to the prophet Daniel, there is a way to go through whatever tribulation or distress you experience, and there's a way to thrive in it. And whenever we go through some personal distress or tribulation, we've got to find a way to survive it, to go through it, and not only to survive, but to thrive. So I want to use an analogy about this time of great distress from the world of mechanical engineering. So one of the things I did years ago is I said to myself, I'm going to build a model radio-controlled truck that can plow snow. You know, about this big, and I said, I'm going to build one that can plow snow. And I got the idea in my head, and I couldn't stop the idea. Once the idea came, it's like, I have to do it, I have to do it. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I was like, I got to do this. So I started building this truck, and I said, my only goal is to plow snow with it. And I said, I got to do a lot of things. I need to make the truck heavy, because if it's not heavy, it's not going to be able to push heavy snow. So I got to make the truck really heavy. So I got these very heavy aluminum wheels, and the wheels they weighed a lot for a small size model truck. And then I said, the next thing I got to do is I need a lot of traction, because you don't want a plow truck to be slipping and sliding around. You want it to have traction. So on the wheels, I put these big chunky tires. They were called mudslinger tires, and they were really big and beefy and had this deep tread. And I said, I'm going to get a lot of traction with this. Then I said, the next thing I got to do is I got to make sure all the power of my motors, they were electric motors, I said, I got to get all their power transmitted directly to all four wheels of the truck. So I don't know if you can follow me on this, but what I did is I locked the axles. So you know when you're driving a car, and say, for example, you take a left turn. Well, when you take that left turn, the wheel on the right side of your car actually has to spin more times than the wheel on the left side, because it's going at greater distance as you make that turn. So what I said is I don't want my truck to be like that. I want all four wheels to be moving the same speed all the time so that they can really just push that snow and get tons of traction. So I locked the axles so that the wheels on all sides were locked together. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but guys who know about trucks know what I'm talking about. So I said, I got it. This truck is going to be awesome, and I'm going to plow some snow with it. So I got the truck running, and it plowed snow, and it worked for about 2 minutes. And what happened is the electronics started overheating really quick, and so they would shut off as like a safety feature. And then the next thing that started happening is parts of the axles were stripping because I had locked the axles. There was no way to relieve the pressure on the driveline. And the other thing is that the gears in the transmission broke. In fact, I opened up one of the axles and I saw the gears looked like they exploded. They were all in little pieces. And I realized what I had done wrong is I was only focusing on plowing the snow, and I didn't think about what was going to be good for the truck. And I put so much stress on every part of the truck that it couldn't handle it. So you had this truck that I built to thrive in the midst of a storm, a snowstorm. But it had so much stress within it that it couldn't do anything. It worked for a couple of minutes, and then a lot of parts broke on it. So I went back to the drawing board, and I said, I got to redesign this. And I went in the exact opposite direction. I went for lightweight wheels. I went for tires that had a much less aggressive tread pattern on it. And I opened up the axles so that all the gears and tires would move freely when I'm turning around and things like that. And the truck would work. And I still have it, and it still works. It doesn't plow as much snow as before, but it still works. And if you want me to plow your driveway, it'll take me about 2 months to get the job done, but I'll probably earn a lot of money in that time. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that, you know, when the Bible talks about this time of great distress that happens on the outside, well, we could have a time of great distress on the inside. You ever go through a situation where you feel stress and you feel pressure on you? It's like pressure building and building and building. Well, that was like my truck. It was going through the stress of the storm, which I designed it to, but it couldn't handle the stress on the inside. It was just building and building and building until everything just broke. Now, according to the Bible, which is the Word of God, when we go through a time of great distress, things happening on the outside that are weighing us down, like a storm we're going through, there is a way to go through it. There is a way to survive it and to thrive in it. And according to the prophet Daniel, and we believe his words are from God, we have to be wise. We have to be people of justice. According to him, if we are wise, if we have wisdom, when we go through a time of great distress, on the inside, we're going to have peace. We're going to thrive in it. We're going to come out of that victorious. So in the case of my truck, when I first started building it, my passion for plowing the snow caused the truck to have a design problem. But when I chose the path of wisdom, I was able to fix the truck and make it work. And what was that wisdom? It led me to humble the truck, to humble its weight, to humble its power, to humble its tires and its transmission. In other words, to seek to be less in order for it to be able to work more. And that made it work. It made it thrive through any snowstorm. So the way of wisdom for us, when the time of great distress comes to us, whether it's something at the end of time for all of humanity or it's something for us personally, is humility. Is humility before God, first of all. In other words, we've got to seek God's will in all things. You know what that looks like? If we don't have that humility before God, when the time of great distress comes to us, in whatever way it does, we're going to be so frustrated that our will, our personal will, is not being done. And that's just going to build up the stress within us. You know, sometimes people can get to the point where they just want their will done, and they become really stressful all the time. And that stress builds and builds and builds until they break. Well, if we have humility, when we go through a time of great distress, we're going to be like, God has a plan for me right now. There's something good that he's doing as I go through this time of great distress, through this storm. I can make it through this and I can thrive because I know that God's will is good for me and I trust him. Humility before God will lead us to pray, to always seek his blessing and conclude our prayers with this idea that God's will is to be done. And then also humility before others. So what we should do is when we meet people, we should see people as a gift. beginning with our family and friends, to see people as a gift. You know, when we don't have humility before others, sometimes we tend to see people only as a problem. If they can do our will, then we accept them. But if they're not capable of doing our will, we see them only as a problem. And everyone around us can start causing our stress to build and build and build. And then we break. But humility will lead us to see that we're surrounded by goodness. It's all of us. And we need to seek that humility. So, brothers and sisters, maybe this example of my poor snowplowing truck, which is doing good now, can help you. That when a time of great distress comes to you, humble yourself before God and before others. That's the way to survive whatever storm you're going through. It's a way to thrive. And you know something? We have an example of someone who did this before us, and that's Jesus Christ. Because when he went through his storm on the cross, what did he do? He humbled himself. He trusted in the Father. He forgave others. He loved others. And he came out of that victorious. So, brothers and sisters, let us try to be more and more like Jesus.